Hello, everybody. It's Dr. Boz. We are live here on Tuesday night. Thank you for joining me live and coming to a thumbnail that gives away a little bit about what I'm going through. Yes, it has been a whopper of a week. And I am going to share what I do when that stress gets as high as it has been in my life. Yeah, it has been actually 4 months and 1 week that I have been without a house, that we have done the hotel hopping when we couldn't live in it. We're back to living in about 100 square feet in the back of our house, 1 bedroom. And I'm a trooper. I try not to complain about this, but when the other things in my life start to get really stressful, it compounds. And one of the peak times of the year in our business, in my business, is the 21-day metabolic kick, where I take 200 students and we zip the metabolism for everybody in class. We are on day 17 of 21, and it is the best class I've ever done. But it is insane, the stress of what it is to get to all the classes, to deliver what these students do deserve. But it works a lot better when I have a regular sleep schedule, when that other component isn't doing what it is. And when it came to today's live, there's a story that I've been working on, a slide deck that I really want to do for you. But I failed. I said, nope, this is not going to happen. There are some things that I can push and get good outcomes, but it was not ready. So we said, know what? We're going to do questions and answers. I'm going to give you a little bit of a hint about what I do in my life when life is getting stressful. And I'm going to ask for a little bit of audience participation here, because it'll help you see where I'm at. So in my life, I've had a few times where the stress level got to be a 10. A 1 out of 10, it got to be a 10. And so it is a rare day that I would ever say my stress level is a 10. But I think it's in part because I can feel it coming. I've been to this place before. I know better than to go there again. And if I had to rank the stress in my life over the last, let's say 3 days, I would give it a 7.5 or an 8. I mean, it'd be that high. So I'm going to show you what I do in that, but I would first love to see where you are in the chat, if you say where you're from, and then what in the last 3 days, from 1 being no stress, 10 being the most stress you've had in your life, where do you rank in the last 10 days? This helps me see, are you gonna look at some of the tips that I'm going to go through here. Honestly, we reviewed this with the students in the 21-day, and we are in the middle of the 72-hour fast. I think that's the other thing, is I didn't get to start my fast until after like halftime of that Super Bowl. So I have another 24 hours to go before I get to eat. Oh, look at all that. So pretty good stress levels, everybody. There's a few of you that are in my range. When I look at my ketones and my glucose, glucose is 64, ketones of 4. I did that about 25 minutes before the show started. So I know part of this is, especially like, I know better than to push any harder than I'm pushing right now. And those numbers teach me a little bit. Oh, this is awesome. There is somebody who hits a 10. Well, boy, oh boy, please pay attention. I think you're going to love what it is that I think about as I take on I can feel that stress. In fact, I have 3 sons, as most of you know, and the youngest son is a freshman in college. First semester underway, did great, even took Calculus 2 over the Christmas break, and now is in Calc 3. And that class is at 7:30 in the morning. And if you ever have had a freshman in college taking a 7:30 in the morning class 4 days a week, yeah, you should pray for him. And he was chirping about how many hours it was taking to get all this stuff done. And I just got super snarky saying, yeah, and I walked to school in the snowstorm uphill both ways. When I was in residency, this is how many hours I worked. I didn't quite give him all of that, but it is an interesting paradigm shift when you say, I've been to places in my life where the stress was very high. And I'm not going back there, But part of it is because of a couple things that I really have mastered. So let me share that with you. It's going to take about 7 minutes to do this, and then we're going to get your questions. So in the meantime, please put your questions into the chat, and my team will help me get to those as we go. So the first thing I like to say is, yes, stress hormone is called cortisol. Cortisol is what your body does produce to help you deal with stress. But when you can feel it brewing, when you can feel that that stress is rising, there's some enemies of cortisol that you should pay attention to. One of them is melatonin. I do not mean the melatonin that you take, although that is what I'm talking about. I mean, oops, I didn't want to go this way. I mean that when you look at how you counteract cortisol, melatonin is one of the opposites. So you could, I actually right before here took a bunch of bubble water and salt because I just feel like that low blood sugar, that high ketones, it's affecting me more than it should. That cortisol is what wakes you up in the morning, but melatonin puts you to sleep. It is the reason you shut down at night. If you have, it is normal to have that high cortisol in the morning, but at night, melatonin should win. It should overpower your cortisol. You can look at it that you cannot make cortisol go away. You have to take cortisol away in order for the melatonin to rise. That might not make sense to people not watching. So yes, cortisol wakes you up. Melatonin puts you to sleep. This is something to coax. If you can feel stress, you got to make melatonin. It's your job to make melatonin. So if you are in a high stress cycle, the handoff between cortisol and melatonin gets disrupted, especially if you have chronic stress, that the cortisol will remain elevated and it blocks the ability for you to make the melatonin. That's a problem. And that's something where I've been to the place where there was no chance. I was going to go over the deep end. I really was going to hit a 10 on the stress level. And knowing that the stress disrupts the handoff between these two, and that's a hormone that's doing that. I think the other way to look at these two enemies or these two opposites is melatonin will restore your calm. If it is lower in the evening, cortisol allows the melatonin to signal, hey, rest, repair, recovery. And what I do mean when I say it's not melatonin that you swallow. The pineal gland inside your brain is what makes this melatonin. And when you can get your brain to make that better, no matter what stress you're going through, the reset that you'll have throughout the night becomes a tool. And, I've really learned to be able to feel that when that stress levels are getting high, if I don't carefully, coax the fact that my melatonin needs to rise, that my cortisol needs to lower, I'll hit that one. So here, the punchline for the two of melatonin versus cortisol is to fix the cycle. Dim the evening lights, and I don't mean 20 minutes before you go to bed. We want your brain to start making melatonin. It cannot begin until you stop stimulating the cortisol, stimulating the lights. So dim the lights. Avoid screens. Again, this is for 3 to 4 hours before, if you're really stressed, 3 to 4 hours before you go to bed. This is a really, really important ritual for me when I can feel what I've felt over the last 5 days is get your head away from it, get my eyeballs away from screens. There are a few classrooms that are going to take me right up until 10 o'clock tonight. So even today I laid down for about 20 minutes and I don't ever do that, but I know you're going to see that step number 3 is I know if I do a couple of these things, I can feel that stress just lower. All right, so yes, cortisol and melatonin are opposites, but cortisol and oxytocin are also opposites. So again, cortisol triggers your fight or flight. It is that drive. It is this, a stress hormone as a response. Oxytocin triggers your rest and your connect. Oxytocin, best known as the love hormone, the connection between mom and baby, breastfeeding versus just a mother holding a baby. All of those are involving this hormone here, oxytocin. High cortisol blocks this emotional healing. So when that stress is high, the ability for you to connect with another person gets blocked. You can't bond or feel trust when you are in that survival mode. And these are really important for a brain that's under high pressure. So when I look at cortisol blocking my emotional healing, cortisol also is the opposite. This is supposed to be a barrier, not, and that's the word oxytocin. It looks like a typo, but it really is just missing a space. Oxytocin counters the stress. So it acts as a buffer. It really does if we infuse it into animals or we look at how it impacts our body. The blood, lower blood pressure, lower the heart rate, and lower the anxiety. All right, so we've got the 3 big steps of cortisol versus its opposite of oxytocin. When you generate oxytocin intentionally, you do things that you really love. This can be laugh. It can be practicing gratitude. Some people hug is a good, other people, they're like, nope, that does not do it for me. But to look at a way where you are really intentionally connecting with another person or something that really fills your soul. So I thought I would show you when I get really stressed, I do something that my mother taught me how to do that is a part of acts of service. So every year there is an auction for the high school that my son graduated from here in Tampa called Jesuit High School. It's an all boys Jesuit school. And the seniors have a ritual where they take off the ties. They've been asked to wear ties every day to school. And now they are at this place where they graduate and they don't have to wear a tie for the rest of the school year. So they hang them around this statue and then they give these ties to the moms for other ideas of crafts or something that you can do. And one of the crafts is to make a pillow and auction it off for the kids who need some help with tuition. So in the midst of this class, when I feel the need to just decompress, I went to the storage place, the bin that's in my garage where lots of things have gone wrong inside that storage bin since the hurricane. But I found my sewing machine. I pulled it out. I found the thing that you have to press the ties with. And I set it up in like the 100 square feet in the back bedroom that we have in our house right now and said, husband, I just need to sew. I need to sew something. So I put the auction happens, I think, in a week or so. And this was the pillow that I made. But I want in the chat for you to say, when you are feeling stressed, what is something that you do that, I mean, it can, and again, we do not want it to be food. Please look for something else that's not food. That if you do this, it makes no sense. My husband's like, you have like every minute of your day planned and you want to sit out, you want to get your sewing machine out and sew a pillow. And I'm like, why, yes, I do. I do. It really makes me feel better. I love what happens. I put on some music, I sew, I make a few mistakes, I rip it out, I try it again. I think of my mother who taught me how to sew. And then I'd make this, this thing for an auction that is fun for me. So put in there, several said music, they go for a walk, they go to the ocean. Yes, that's a really good one. I'm going to go over here so you guys can see these because it is helpful. Yeah, go to the ocean. They blow bubbles. I love it. It's very low stress. That is awesome. I remember my kids loved that. I did that too. Thanks for the praise on the pillow. Yeah, sewing, music, reading, studying. When I am really stressed out, if I'm on a plane or if I'm in a car, I'll play with my Keynote slides. My husband's like, you are so weird. I know, but I like it. I like playing with how the animation can work and how could I teach that in a little way. So it's stupid, but it's also like a complete time suck to get those slides to do what I want them to do. But it works for me. I feel better when I play with it and just kind of go into my own little space. So there's some kind of creativeness that happens when I do that. And you can see several of yous. Watch Kung Fu Panda. That is awesome. I get that. Relax sauna, as somebody says. Yeah. So yeah, again, when you do this, what I think is interesting is the first time you did this, it was not easy. It was not rewarding. I mean, the first time I sewed, I can't even remember. I mean, I think I was in the 3rd grade, and it was not helpful. But to be mindful and to be doing something where your mind gets to escape, it is learned. So I know that when I'm sewing, there is a mindfulness to it. It's this place where I get to do this thing with my brain that I don't get to do at other places. And I know if I was to teach this to somebody saying, no, 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 it will relax you, they would say, you're crazy. That's not true. So mindfulness is a skill. It is not a gift. It is built through the repetition, just like exercise strengthens muscles. Mindfulness is built through repetition. And when I work with patients who've had addictions or had setbacks in life, we'll talk about something that they can do over time. And they know that the first few times they do it, it's not helpful. There are these small moments that build resilience. And even if you can give yourself 5 minutes of doing some of these small moments, in mindfulness, they talk about as breathing. You're going to see that at the end of this video, I link what I teach people in this class and what I've taught patients over the years, but also like even in a prison or a jail setting, we use a couple of little tricks to help relax your brain. And what's been great with this last class is I had everybody in the class do this exercise. And then I said, all right, now go to the chat on the Zoom, because our 21 day is through Zoom. And I want you to put your fingers on the keyboard and not tell anybody, not look around what the answers are. What did you feel when we practiced meditation for 3 minutes? And some people type in there, oh, I felt calm. I felt like, Zen. Other people say, this was stressful. I was anxious. I was worried. And again, those small moments of 5 minutes will help you find a way to get to calm, but it is practiced. It is something you learn. So consistency matters more than the duration. When they say, Doc, I can only do it for a few minutes, I'm like, I don't care. Practicing something that relaxes you daily, it does rewire our brain and resets during stress. I know that during the 21 day, every time I'm not in a Zoom class, you can actually see little Keto behind me here. Let's go to camera only. See her? She's taking. So yeah, the other dog kept digging out from under the fence. So her name was Kiwi. This is Keto. I gave Kiwi across to the neighbor. She kept running across to the old lady that lives across the street. And much to my husband's chagrin, she now lives at the neighbor's house because she wouldn't stay home. But Keto is coming to work with me because she keeps, we have plastic for windows. So she keeps jumping out the window and running down the street. And yeah, that's not working. But every time I get a break in between Zoom classes, I take the dog for a walk, just even if it's like 5 minutes. And that walk, boy, it does reset me. So consistency rewires the brain, and then be patient. Stress isn't erased overnight. You didn't get there overnight, just like when we work with high blood sugars, they did not get high overnight. It does take time. Every mindfulness moment pulses the cortisol down, and that builds long-term balance. So when I look at what I've done over the last week, I could feel myself getting this tension, like, my ability to shut down at night was taking a little longer. My snarkiness gets higher. My ability to just tolerate when things don't go right, my fuse gets shorter. So I went to a Super Bowl party on Sunday, and I knew that I dare not eat carbs because we're starting a 72-hour fast. And boy, yesterday I could feel, as the hardest day of the fast was happening, I wasn't feeling great. I felt a little tense. And, Chad, my husband, was fasting with me, and he doesn't always fast with me. So we're laying in bed. It's like, 1:30 in the morning, and not this dog, but the other dog is having a dream. And again, we have 100 square feet. So both dogs are in the bed. The dogs are not in the bed. The dogs are on the floor. But she's dreaming. And I said, don't you think it's ironic that the two of us are laying here awake, and the dang dog is in a dreamland while we sit there and watch her sleep? So I'm pretty sure that the ketones were on the rise based on my numbers this morning. I'll show you a look at that. In the class, we do let me go to website. Here we go. In the class, we do this. Let's take this down a little bit. We have these dashboards that we show everybody and how they're doing. So here is my numbers over the last, let's see if I can hover for you there. Yeah. Over the last, or actually right before the show, 4, and then the ketones were 64. This morning, my blood sugar was 68 and ketones were 2.2. And then yesterday morning, 83 and 0.9. And then I think this is, yeah, 1:30 in the afternoon. I was, blood sugars of 90. It's just calibrating things there. And ketones had gone down to 1. I must have eaten right before that. So as you look at these numbers, yeah, this was during our sardine challenge. This is during my water fast, and I still got 24 hours left to go. So I'm just thankful that you guys are going to ask questions and that I don't have any more slides. I mean, the slides were nice. I mean, this is what I do. It is something that I wasn't great at this before too long ago, and now I'm better at it. I do have an announcement that I know next week is going to be a unique week here in not just the Dr. Boz show, but I have something I'm counting down for, and that is a trip away. So I will not be here next week. I will be in Iceland. My husband is flying me to Iceland, and I'll tell you that we are taking one thing with us along on our trip, and that is the oil. If you have not bought the Valentine's Day gift for your sweetheart, there is a $50 coupon or $50 off of that oil for a great Valentine's Day gift. I was trying to make sure I was in the right spot here. There's a pop-up that comes when you go to the website, and it's so pretty. I was trying to show it to you, but I might have to refresh or something to get it to happen because it's not showing this way. Well, anyway, when you go to the website, bozmd.com, and you type in, you just hang out there, it'll show you this really pretty Valentine's Day pop-up. If you haven't bought one, again, it really supports the channel. This is the only thing I use on my skin. I give it away as gifts for my friends and the coaches, and I would love to see you give your Valentine what I gave my husband, which is we're going to take this with us when we go to Iceland. All right, let's go over to the questions and see what you've got for me here. I think that was the only announcement I was supposed to make is the Valentine's Day thing. Oh, good. We have some good questions here. All right, February 11th. Here we are. So let's go to questions. Ooh, I got a little too big there. Pat C writes in and says, if someone is in ketosis with GLP-1, if someone is in ketosis, will GLP-1 drugs increase insulin and lock fat cells? All right, so I think what you're asking there is when you study what GLP-1s do, they do have a statement. I'm going to go back here. They do have a statement that says, yeah, these GLP-1s increase. Sorry, I'm just super thirsty. They increase insulin. And you say, well, wait a minute, I'm insulin resistant. I don't want you to increase my insulin. So should I be doing that? Isn't that going to make my fat cells worse? We've had a lot of discussions about this in the 21-day course. So when you look at somebody who is injecting insulin, you're right. There's a lot of things that match a GLP-1 and injectable insulin. It's a syringe, it's an injectable. It says on there that it's going to lower your glucose and it will affect insulin. It's going to raise insulin. But if you look specifically at what those GLP-1s are doing, it is inside the cells of that pancreas, those islets of Langerhans, the beta cells are producing insulin. So it does 3 things to the beta cells. It makes those beta cells last longer. Beta cells are the cells in your pancreas that make insulin. So they don't die as quickly. They are hardier. They live longer. That's a good thing. Number 2, they proliferate. So kind of like a stem cell, it'll make a cell that looks just like it. It'll replace itself without dying. So cell replacement is called one thing. Proliferation means, oh, we made a few extra beta cells because of that GLP-1. And the third thing is when insulin is needed, it has an increase in insulin. So it doesn't mean that the body's overall insulin is higher. Like if you increase the injection in insulin, that delivers a long-acting insulin to that patient, and that would lock fat cells. The beauty of a hormone and GLP-1 it is a hormone. It doesn't mean that the hormone is constantly pounding on your beta cells all the time. When your body is asking for insulin, it will increase the insulin. If you look at overall insulin-resistant patients, when the volume of food or the amount of eating goes down, like with these GLP-1s, they are producing a lot less insulin because the stimulus is less. But when they produce insulin, it is more of a peak and valley, which is the healthy response of insulin or any kind of hormone. Just like cortisol, we were talking about stress. When cortisol is constantly high, that would be similar to what happens when I give you a long-acting insulin. That's a constant high or a constant replacement. Now, that's life-saving for people who don't make insulin. But when the GLP-1 is present, your insulin response peaks and valley. When stress is always present, your cortisol is here. What should be happening with cortisol is it should peak and valley. And when we watch it, oxytocin and the melatonin, it's pulsing that cortisol down because there's a spike and then a valley. So looking at what those GLP-1s do, they don't, lock. What does lock those fat cells what does lock those fat cells closed is when there's no ketones present. So it really is a critical step that, again, we are doing a lot of teaching about inside that course, that you got to have ketones present before you ever start these things, if you want my opinion. And with that, we think are a really interesting and hopefully helpful tool. Okay. All right. Next question. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Questions. Oh, Dr. Boz, how is your husband? Oh gosh, thank you for asking. So we got a path report back last Friday that the polyp, the 17 millimeter polyp, on the crown of the polyp, it did have a high cells of mitosis, very mitotic cells. That means that they're dividing faster than they should. That's dangerous because that's the stage they say right before they say cancer. So officially, the report was negative. He is fasting with me this week because he didn't like how hard it's been for his ketones to raise. Again, he just hadn't checked in a while, and part of it's the excuse of hurricane homeless and the stuff we're going through, but nothing like that scare to say, all right, game on, dude. So we have a negative report. He'll go back in 3 years for another colonoscopy. I was super thankful for that. The results being what they were, a little too close for comfort when you look carefully at that cell. So thank you for asking that, Judy. All right, go back to Carol S. says, my body and brain are burned out. Hey, I relate. I am not producing ketones. They have been ranging. I have a couple of folks that they are ranging from 0.1 to 0.3, and I'm taking MCT and eating sardines. I have 2 brain surgeries. How can I make ketones? Okay, yeah, let me go through this. There's a couple people in our 21-day class that have struggled. And in part, their life is pretty busy. They're doing a lot of things and they're trying to make ketones. Now, that's normal. That's called motherhood, or that's called being in life. But when I look at the patients that are struggling, we did a sardine fast where the rules were you started with a can of sardines. You could have all the sardines you wanted for 72 hours. And there is no exception. Like this, that the sardines are what they eat. And when they are able to follow that, it's almost without exception that that they were able to make ketones. The folks that struggled if you're going to have a scale of insulin resistance, they're the most insulin resistant. And you can't make a ketone until you bump down the insulin a little bit. Now, it doesn't have to go back to normal to get the ketones to start, but you have to have the liver make the first batch of ketones. And even when they're dumping in a bunch of MCT and trying to eat sardines, if they're eating the sardines super late at night, if they're fasting in the morning and then eating in the afternoon, in the morning, your body already makes cortisol. It's already stressed. It's got high insulin. That came because the sun came up. So to put your eating in the morning. So here's what I said to this gal who's really struggled. She really wants to make ketones. She's trying her hardest. And I said, all right, you don't get to eat any food after noon. Your sardine challenge is eat 2 cans of sardines before noon. And then you can she wanted to go to a water fast. I'm like, you're going to have to water fast for 15 days, 12 to 15 days when they have that high of insulin. They have too much storage. They've been at this too long. The game is too advanced. So I say, quit trying to win that way. Win through the hormones. And that begins with open the can of sardines in the morning, eat them first thing in the morning. You can have another can before noon, and then stop eating at 12:15 is the end. And well, I get to see her numbers tomorrow, and I know she's really struggled. I hope she's watching to say, I am praying for you. But just like Carol, who has a major life event, has 2 brain surgeries ahead of her. You need to not be eating from noon until 6:30 in the morning. So that is a long time without food. And when you do eat, it needs to be high fat whole foods like sardines. The other beautiful part about sardines is if you're already eating them and you put them in with MCT during those hours of 6:30 in the morning until noon, and then water and salt only. Water and salt only. That's what I'm doing here is you'll make ketones. Every person makes ketones when they do that. How many days you have to do that to make ketones? That depends on your insulin. Don't give up though, because that brain surgery is you're going to need the help. When you get into the hospital, if you go in not making any ketones, that your liver hasn't made ketones in a hot muck, like 10 years, 5 years, whatever it's been, it's a long recovery. All right. Mirella Dan says, all my markers improved in the past 2 years of keto, but the homocysteine increased from 10 to 13.8 in a year and a half. Do you know why, and what should I do to reverse the trend? Thank you, Dr. Boz. Okay, so just last Friday, I put out a video on this where the ferritin and the paper that I linked in there was showing high ferritin leading to high homocysteine. First of all, you do need to fix that. There is what most people in my practice that have a high homocysteine, we are pushing a ketogenic diet. And I don't mean just like you're saying you're keto. They actually prick their finger in the morning, first thing in the morning, TOT, test on the toilet before you start your day, and their blood sugars are less than 100, and their ketones are above 1, first thing in the morning. And if you're not doing that, at least above 0.5. But if you're trying to reverse homocysteine, I need you to not say keto. I need you to prove keto, like you're actually making ketones, you're checking and making ketones. And then I look at if they're trending upwards, I put them all on the methylated folate. You can get the blood test done to see, do they have the MTHFR gene, and but a third of people have this gene. So it's a lot of people. And the test for the MTHFR, you got to go to the doctor, you got to get the test, and it costs like $80 and some insurances don't cover it. Or you could just go to Amazon and buy the methylated folate and say, take that for 3 months. While being in a ketogenic state, pushing those ketones, at least doing what I do every week, which is get a big surge in your metabolism once a week. During the weekdays, especially during the 21 day, my morning numbers are pretty good, like 1.1 for ketones, and glucose is 70, 80, somewhere in there. You don't have to probably be that good, but you do need to have ketones in production, and then at least once a week, stimulate your metabolism. That, along with taking the methylated folate, and I bet you it's down to 8 in 3 months, or at least 9.5. So it's under 10. So good question, pretty advanced question. If you haven't seen the video that came out on Friday, I think you'll be very interested in that. All right, Jill writes in and says, 41, female, been carnivore for 6 months, mainly for brain fog, nasal polyps, and Hashimoto's. Hashimoto's is a autoimmune problem that happens to the thyroid. Finally feeling energetic when adding MCT. No need to lose weight. How much MCT should I take before causing weight gain? So the best part about looking at the amount of MCT is to look at your ketones in the morning. When you saw the last gal who said, or maybe gal or guy who said, I'm taking MCT and I'm eating sardines and I'm not making ketones. So there's something wrong there. She should be making ketones. And so either she's eating at the time where her insulin is already charged. So she's eating from 2 o'clock in the afternoon on, and usually they're saying, well, I'm not hungry in the morning. I don't want to eat. And then they get hungry in the afternoon and evening. And I'm saying, flip the switch, girl. Eat in the morning. Don't eat in the afternoons. When you look at MCT supplementation and you say, well, how do I keep the rhythm? I mean, I have several patients that have brain tumors, that have seizures. We have to keep their ketones above 1. We use MCT to do that. It is a great way for your liver to spin those fats into ketones. You're going to do a lot better job of keeping those ketones elevated if you're in a ketogenic state in the morning, or you're pushing those numbers in the morning. You're like, well, I just don't want to gain weight. Well, the weight gain comes after the numbers tank, meaning the ketones are 0.1 in the morning, the ketones are 0.3 in the morning, the ketones are 0.4 in the morning. The glucose, instead of being 60s, 70s, 80s, it's 90s, 105, even 110. And if you look at the numbers being that high for glucose and that low for ketones, the weight gain will come after that, probably about 2 weeks after that. So if you're checking numbers, you can see it. It foreshadows that problem. So if you aren't checking numbers, I mean, best way to guarantee that, protect yourself, is to check the numbers. All right, Betty writes in, after several years of keto, my total cholesterol is over 300. My calcium score resulted in 0, though. Good job. Should my total cholesterol numbers settle down? I'm 61 and I have a normal BMI. Okay, I wouldn't worry about that total cholesterol. I really wouldn't. If you are just based on these numbers of your BMI and then having a negative calcium score of 0, Betty, I would bet that if you did the test called LPIR, so you can Google that. I have one video out there that's it is the best predictor of heart disease. I was just at a meetup, it's spelled MEAT, meetup this past weekend, and I sat next to Dr. Avadia, who is the cardiologist from St. Pete here in Florida. So we're kind of neighbors, but we really only see each other at these keto things. We share some patients, but we were talking about how well that LPIR has been researched and is now a lot easier for other like non-ketogenic or non-metabolic health physicians to rely on, to order the test, and to be able to be confident that it's a way better predictor than total cholesterol at saying, Betty, are you at risk? Well, if your LPIR score is less than 25, there isn't a test out there that's going to make me say, care about your cholesterol. Really what the LPIR score looks at is how well you shuffle fat around your body. Meaning, if you're eating, when I get carnivore people eating too much, they consume fat and then they don't recycle it through their liver. So it's hanging out in their blood system too long. Now, you can eat carnivore too much to do that. Their total cholesterols are usually way higher than 300, but you'll know for sure by looking at an LPIR score. So the places that you can get that ordered, I think Own Your Own Labs does it. You got to be careful because it's under an NMR, nuclear magnetic resonance test, which shows you the particle sizes of that cholesterol. But not all of them calculate the LPIR. So when you're ordering that test, I think it's like a few more dollars to have them calculate the LPIR for you. But just do that, because sometimes they order this NMR and they pay like $75 for it. And then there's one part of the particles that is not in the report, and you need that data in order to run the calculation for the LPIR. It's an insulin resistance, lipoprotein insulin resistance score is what it is. And it says how well do you shuffle fat throughout your body. And if you're on a ketogenic diet or a carnivore diet, you want to be efficient at it, which means your LPIR score would be less than 25. Okay, let's go back. Rita says, Dr. Boz, you fast 48 hours a week. Why not two 24-hour fasts instead? Because I've been insulin resistant. Good question, Rita. At 24 hours, it's not a very big metabolic stress for my body. I will have a Dr. Boz ratio probably 85, maybe even 90. But at 36 hours, I mean, I don't call it fasting at 24 hours. I only call it fasting at 36 and more. The reason why I made that rule when I wrote the book KetoCONTINUUM is any one of my patients. I mean, if you've carried a baby, meaning you've been insulin resistant for the pregnancies, or you've had a weight problem, even just 10 pounds overweight for the last 10 years, you've been insulin resistant. You cannot lower that insulin in 24 hours. They're just too advanced. They've been doing it too long. Boy, oh boy, do we get results at 36 hours. I start my fast on Sunday. When I'm not doing the 21 day, I will get to Tuesday night, which is about 60 hours of fasting, somewhere between 55 and 60 hours of fasting. On Super Bowl Sunday, I didn't start my fast until Sunday evening at about halftime is when I stopped eating. And I got another 24 hours in me to go. So I'm not overly excited about that yet. But that's what it takes to stimulate my metabolism. If I only did 24 hours, it's like wasted torture. Like not eating isn't fun for me either, but to only get to 24 hours, I won't lower my insulin enough to make a difference. And I'll add a little weight over time. When I do the 36 hours, I practice pulsing my ketones. It keeps my liver in shape for making them. And well, it's not just me. I learned that from my patients. All right, let's go back to questions. Yeah. So Jeanette says, I have asked several times if there is a substitute for a sardine fast. I'm very allergic. Please help. Well, it's harder. I mean, it is harder. That fast gets, sardine fast, sardine, 72 hours of eating only one subject or one thing. I would say mackerel, but usually if they're allergic to sardines, the mackerel has been something they're allergic to as well. What I'm trying to stick to is whole foods. I do have a couple of folks that use pork belly. Again, very fatty substance, but sardines, people don't overeat the sardines. They eat what they need to in the sardines, and they really learn what does it feel like to feel full. Satiety is practiced during the sardine challenge. When they switch to pork belly, I see them overeat a lot. I mean, it's a frequent problem. So I know that you're allergic. You can try that, but be really careful of food volume. The lessons are a lot harder to learn with the other foods besides the pork belly, something besides pork belly. All right, Penny says, what type of magnesium is better for improving sleep? The L-threonate wins on this. It passes the blood-brain barrier the best. It's the most expensive. I think I have a bottle here. That's probably not a dumb idea for me to take. Yeah, that's the one I take. Magteen. I know I'm fasting, but I'm going to take 2 of these while I'm talking to you because then I get it done. All right, next question. Karen S. says, how do you feel about using beef tallow bars made from keto brick for fat fasting? I have higher ketones with them over the sardines, but does that matter when trying to burn body fat? It's actually not a bad idea for what Jeanette's struggling with as well, is those fat bars. I don't like the taste of them. I think they taste like, it's like the texture has it's like fat mixed with ashes, is what my tongue does to it. So I don't like that. But I don't doubt. I mean, it leaves a coating in my mouth when I eat them. And I've tried several brands. It's not, just the keto brick. But boy, when patients say I go camping, that's all I'm taking along to eat, they come back into ketosis. But if I get a choice, I'd rather have fish, sardines, just easier on my palate. But I wonder if Jeanette, the question 2 above that, she could use that instead of the pork belly. I hadn't thought of that. Okay, let's see. Is that the last one? Oh, got a couple more. Oh, we got a few more. Okay, here we go. Let's go to Sahari. Said she finished 3 days of sardine challenge, went straight into a water fast. Would my ketones continue to be elevated from the sardines during the water fast? The water fast is a different stress. It is another stress, if you would, for your metabolism. I mean, if you followed Jane's story where she had sardines for 100 days, I think it took her into like somewhere into like the 60th, 70th day before she really wasn't making as robust of ketone, like her body finally adapted. And it wasn't, ketones of 0.6. They went from like ketones and, Dr. Boz ratios in the 20s and 30s to Dr. Boz ratios in the 60s and 70s. So, that fast continues, that metabolic stress from the sardines continues, but if you add a water fast on top of that, it's like a double stress. So yeah. Josephine said, would listening to music before bed help? Yes, especially if you practice shutting down your brain. I mean, the point of music isn't to like there's a great case that talks about when a pianist is listening to music, they're practicing playing it. And although that might sound relaxing to us, their brain was working really hard. So what we're trying to do is relax your brain. You'll see at the end of this video, or you probably won't get linked for about an hour after this video uploads, that I teach how I relax people's brains. It's great. So take a minute to do that. If you're, I had people, some of my students in jail, just do this when they couldn't sleep in jail, and cheap, easy, safe. The first night, it's not gonna be perfect. It does get better after about, 2 or 3. It starts to improve at 2 or 3 sessions. By 10 sessions, they're even better. All right, let's do a couple more questions, and then we'll call it good. Mira says, any explanation on why I got a sudden skin tags and dark skin after 2 months of keto? Never had them before. They were in the process of happening. That dark skin and those skin tags are growth hormone. When people say 2 months of keto, I think, okay, you lowered carbs. You lowered carbs. I want to know what your Dr. Boz ratio is when they say keto. If you want to lower that growth hormone, that insulin-like growth factor, if you want to lower the insulin enough to not create the stimulus of growth, you got to have ketones high and glucose low. So when people first start keto, they've been producing, they're usually coming to the ketogenic diet because the signs of insulin resistance are all around them. Growing skin tags and that acanthosis nigricans on the back of their neck, or that dark skin in the folds of their body, are known for the skin at the bottom of the dermis has been impacted by a growth factor that's from insulin. It goes away, but you have to get the ketones, the glucose down and the ketones up. Meaning saying people are keto, I need them showing me the numbers that they're keto in order to get the results. When you're still growing the problems that are known to be associated with insulin resistance, I would put money on it that your numbers are not as good as they need to be, for sure. All right. Cod liver as healthy as sardines. Okay. You can try that. I have a heck of a time getting people to eat sardines, let alone cod liver. All right, Judy P was going to be the last one, and then we'll call it good. Let's go to questions. She says, I am a lean mass hyper responder. I don't want to lose any more weight. In August, my A1C was 5.8. That's too high. Good job that in November you got it down to 5.6. So far, I have been doing a 16/8 or longer intermittent fasting, 2 meals a day half the time, and now currently 2 meals a day. Currently, okay. How long do I roughly take? So you're going to need to fast longer than that. If you want to get an A1C of 5.6 down and you're only doing 16/8, you're a lean mass hyper responder. You're going to need to fast longer than that. I'll just tell you now. To get a 5.0, I've not seen that reversal without getting to that 36 hours of fasting. This is another one. My doctor says that the white dots on my face are from high cholesterol numbers, but I'm wondering if they might be oxalate. They might be. Is there any way to tell the difference? They actually feel crusty when they're on their face. They can feel them. It hurts too when they have oxalate dumping. I mean, there's a way to know. Look at an NMR. Look at the nuclear magnetic resonance for your cholesterol. If you've got a high LPIR, the chances that it's from your cholesterol is more. Again, if you're newly on the ketogenic diet and you're getting those dots on your face, I really push people to wait 6 months on a ketogenic diet before they look at their cholesterol. And I would not be playing around if you have white dots on your face. I would be getting the book KetoCONTINUUM, which is what I use. It's the workbook I use to teach my patients how to do this, and do exactly what David did. Get yourself into an advanced state of ketosis. Do not play around. I mean, when they go on, I'm going to put this in air quotes, the ketogenic diet, and they're having symptoms that they're making too much cholesterol, their cholesterol is seeping out of their skin, you should be looking at the numbers on the inside, because there is a way to predict, hey, you got to do this tighter. If you've got that high of a problem when you start the ketogenic diet, back away from the edge. Do this with some science behind you. Check those numbers. All right, troops. I do. You'll see that link to the meditation thing at the end. This is my husband and I headed to Iceland for the next, leaving on Friday, be gone for a week. So we will not have a live show next week. And if you are looking for a Valentine's Day gift, we'd love the support at the Dr. Boz channel. We'll see everybody. Good night.